All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Athlete and Artist Show. I am the host and artist, Kyle Fortch. And for the first time, we actually have another artist, or artist, I should say, as our guest. They're multi-platinum certified, multi-award winning with their brand new single, Keep On Loving You, out now. The brand new EP comes out May 28th. No simple thing. They're the first unsigned band to ever grace the cover of Rolling Stone, Warner Music Group recording artist, the legendary Canadian rock and rollers, the Sheepdogs. How are you guys?
Good day. How are you?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Just for the people listening, we've got Ryan and Ewan here from the Sheepdogs. Pleasure to have you guys on. And just real quick off the bat, two things. These are probably two of the guys that have the best sets of hair I've ever seen.
Thanks. I
I
just got
try,
mine.
you know.
So,
Sorry?
yeah. I just got an illegal haircut. So mine's nice and fresh.
A little snip, hey? I've been growing
Yeah.
mine out all Corona, and now I feel like I should just get it cut because mine's embarrassing compared to your guys'.
Are you in Alberta or where are you?
Yeah, I'm in Calgary.
Yeah,
They're
okay. Yeah.
yeah, it's been a ride. But what can you do? Can't really control it. You just gotta adapt and move on, right?
And find a speakeasy barber somewhere.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
um, right off the bat, you guys have a brand new single out, like I said. Keep on loving you. Great single. The first
Thank
time
you.
I heard it, it literally just reminded me of it would be in like every feel good movie you've ever seen. Like it just has
So
that vibe to it. So what was the inspiration to write that single, and then what made you guys want to pick it as the lead single off the EP?
I think it's like I don't know, like everyone's saying that it's like oh, we're starting to kind of like hopefully turn the corner on the pandemic and everybody wants like positivity and like lift up music kind of vibes. But that's kind of like always how we make music is like feel good vibes. Like we love like cranking like I don't know, the Doobie Brothers or like just like fist pumping like good time music. It's kind of always been our bag. And it just happens to work out that now people are really more than ever wanting it. So yeah, I think when we sent the like batch of songs to the label, it's like, Keep on Loving You doesn't have that like, oh, rock radio, banging kind of vibe, but something about it is like maybe undeniable.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we recorded it, last summer at a time when we had basically like spent a bunch of time apart because we weren't able to get together and play music. And it's kind of the longest time that we sort of, in all the years that we've been a band. I mean, you and I and Sam started this band in 2004. It was like the longest amount of time we've ever spent apart, not like making or working on or playing music, performing. And so we got all together last July for Canada Day. We were playing on TV for the Canadian government, and we booked in a studio in Montreal while we were there filming it and recorded these songs. And it was, a time when we'd been apart for so long, so it was so exciting. So I think, we wanted to make good. We always do make good time music, but we wanted to make songs that would sort of be looking forward rather than being like sort of stuck in the midst of a pandemic. And that was definitely one of those songs that was written. Ewan wrote it before the pandemic, but leading into hopefully looking forward. It's a positive song. It's kind of about like getting through some stuff. And I think, in our mind, we'd rather be putting out stuff that's positive and looking forward than looking back.
Totally.
Definitely. And like you said, like it's the type of music that people are really looking for and need right now with, there's a lot of negativity going on, and it's really one of those things that kind of keeps the spirits up. You guys mentioned that you recorded the EP in Montreal. How long did you guys lock yourselves in the studio out there basically, and how did you land in Montreal to record the record?
It might have only been 7 days total or something. Like it was
Really?
around. Yeah, we did it pretty quick, but we had rehearsed a bit before we went in, and the reason we were there was because we were doing a stream for Canada Day.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be a live show on in Ottawa, but of course no dice. But so we were all just going to be in Montreal anyway, so we just kind of extended our stay and just we kind of I don't know found this vibey studio. Ryan found it because it was he there's this band called Tricky Woo from Montreal back in the day that are like check them out. They're really cool and like sick rock and roll vibes. But Ryan got to know this dude from that band because he's making a documentary about him, and
Okay.
he works at this studio. And he's like, so it's like, all right, let's try it out. I mean, that's the thing about the pandemic is it's like your first, second, and third plans are all constantly scuttled by
Yeah.
restrictions and like, you can't plan anything. So it's kind of like, oh, we're all gonna be in Montreal. Okay. Oh, there's a studio there. Should we try it out? Yeah, okay. Like you kind of have to go with one of that kind of stuff.
But it's funny too, because like leading into the pandemic, I mean, we had a lot of plans. I mean, we were in Saskatoon for the Junos and we were like getting all geared up for that before that got canceled. And from there, we were going to go to Portland, Oregon and make a full length record with the guy there. And then we were going to go on a cross Canada tour with the Black Keys. We had like summer shows and European tours and,
Wow.
kind of gearing up, and that all like went away. And it's like, so much about being an artist and being a musician nowadays is about that sort of always looking ahead for what that next thing is. And the pandemic completely like leveled that for us and for everybody basically. And so much of this was that like we made all these plans and they got canceled. So we had to just roll with what we could do and try to figure out. And like you had mentioned, it wasn't like, we didn't really know about the studio until, I talked to Adrian from that band who's talking about Tricky Woo about it. And he had said, you guys should come check this out next time you're in Montreal. And I was like, why don't we just come and try throwing down some recordings? Because it was great because it was a place we could actually all be in the same room and record, which was important to us because we, that's how we like to make music. We don't like to do it, like this from afar on Zoom or something like that, or, that's not really how we do our thing. So yeah, it was about sort of like everything last year has been about pivoting and trying to change, figuring out what you can do and not getting too precious about it. So it worked out really well. So thankfully that was a good thing. It worked out perfectly.
Was the studio still publicly open, or were you able to just get in there because you kind of already had that connection? Because I know, at least out here anyway, all the studios out here were closed. Like I had a tough time recording my record, and I ended up having to record in like this random mansion on like this random ranch in the middle of nowhere. It was super weird. It was like this rich guy just built like a studio in his basement, basically, or he expanded onto his house. I was like, this is so weird.
Montreal was like, yeah.
Sorry,
Montreal was kind of sort of on lockdown. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say Alberta's good for like rich guys who have secret ranch studios and shit like that. But no, you go ahead, Ryan.
No, I was just gonna say I Montreal was sort of in a weird zone because they were very much locked down. I mean, there wasn't really anything going on. It was in July, so things were starting to open up a little bit, but we were like the only people, for example, staying at the hotel we were staying at. It was literally an empty hotel that we were staying at. They didn't even have a front desk clerk at it. It was like a very bizarre thing where we were just sort of at this hotel by ourselves. But in that situation, we sort of just bubbled up and had a minimal amount of people, and I think we were allowed to because of they were still allowing it. I think it was still considered an essential service or whatever. So, I mean, we were just careful about it. But I mean, things were pretty rough COVID-wise in Montreal at that time, and it was very much shut down. So we were fortunate we were able to make that work.
Yeah, they were shut down. Like they had, I think, the strictest restrictions before, at least them in Ontario. I'm not sure kind of who went first, but they were the strictest for seems like the last year, like the entire length of COVID. So it's great that you were able to find a spot that gave you the opportunity to actually still, make your music and make the record. And you guys recorded it all analog tape as opposed to digital, correct?
Yeah, we start on tape and then we overdub on digital, but
okay.
It's like, the meat of the record is done on tape and then we digitally record our vocals on top. But yeah, it's a little hybrid, modern meets old school approach.
Is that something you guys always do, or is that a new approach that you brought to this record?
No, it's hard to record on tape because tape is hard to get, and then you also have to be really like rehearsed. Like you can't just do a million takes on tape because there's only so much of it, and then the more you use it, it starts to like depreciate the sound. But we would like, because we're pretty rehearsed, it was something that the boys at the studio, Nick and Adrian, really wanted to do. So we were like, yeah, let's go for it. And you do like 5, 6, 7 takes of a song, pick what your take was, and then you'd start to stack up on top of it.
Okay.
So it's cool.
Yeah, I mean, the idea was sort of have us like build the essence of the track in a live setting where it's got kind of like the push and pull of everyone sort of playing together and then adding on top of that. I mean, there wasn't like crazy amount of overdubs on these songs, because the idea was like try to do them as close to a live feel as possible. But yeah, I mean, obviously most times you're delivering things digital. I mean, most people listen to music on their phone or whatever. So, it does eventually get digitized, but there's a certain quality that comes. But this would be the first record that we've done that. I mean, everything else has been all digital. So it was the first one we've done to tape, I think.
For the people listening, what's like, just explain the sound difference, or because you kind of get like that old school feel, especially when you're doing all live instrumentation, like a full band, and recording that analog as opposed to digital. So was that kind of one of the reasons that you guys chose to do that, to get that really natural old school feel, like you said, with the live instruments and just a different sound than digital?
Yeah, it's like a twofold thing. I think it's like the sound of tape. It's there's like sort of I won't use a technical term, but like a smushing of the sounds of where they kind of it's like, when you like food, like something congeals and it like you make like a lasagna and it's like better the next day or something. There's like that magical like melding of all the flavors. Like on tape, the bass and the drums, certain things, like when they hit together, they kind of like become one in a certain way that just sounds badass. And then the other thing is, like, when you're recording on tape, you can't you got to like live within an entire performance. And so when you're laying it down, you're kind of playing in the moment, and so you have to play, it's less forgiving. You can't fix it up as much. And like, I don't know, for example, like the modern recording world is very much like, if you go into a session, you'll see a computer and you'll see Pro Tools usually, and it's like you'll just see like a drum track, and it's just like lines of edits on like every single beat, quantized, and like whatever. That's like how you can do it, and it's it's kind of the norm now. But it takes a little bit of the human factor out of it,
For sure. Like, it's funny you mentioned that, because when I look at a Pro Tools track, especially during the mixing process, when you have all of the elements in there, it just looks like a giant mess, especially to someone like people that have never seen it before, or have never really been in music or recorded music. It's like, what the hell is going on here? There's just so many elements to it.
It gets
I mean, there's like a time and I mean, I guess there's a time and place for that in different strokes for different folks. But for us, I think not only just the fact that we make kind of old school kind of rock and roll music, but I think also that there's a little bit more feeling that comes out from having that. I mean, it's people making music together, and the tape kind of solidifies that in a way, and gives it a certain kind of vibe, like Ewan said, that the push and pull of two people playing guitars together and maybe not necessarily hitting the notes at the exact same time, but in a way that's like has like a flow to it or movement. I think that's or drums and bass kind of interacting with each other. That has a little bit more feel. And there is a place for like pop music that's really like every single beat is perfect and every single thing is perfect. But we don't try to make imperfect music, but we like imperfections that create and make something special, for sure.
Yeah, it makes it unique, right?
Mm-hmm. No, definitely.
Do you guys did you mix the record yourselves as well, or did you work with an outside mixing engineer to finalize the record?
Our friend Tom Darcy mixed it in Toronto with me annoying him a lot.
I was gonna say, it was like Tom Darcy got the mix credit, Ewan gets the co-mix. With everything we do, we're very particular in how we do things, and between Ewan and I, we annoy a lot of people in demanding what we want, and so Tom Darcy's a great guy to facilitate that, but definitely Ewan has his hand in the cookie jar of all.
But it's Tom recorded our previous records, and he knows a lot of what we do and that kind of thing. So it's just like hard not to be an overbearing son of a bitch sometimes with your songs. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, it's your craft, right? You want to make sure. I would use the word perfect, but we just mentioned it being imperfect. But you want to make sure it sounds right and how you want it to sound before it gets put out. So it's important. Like, I think all artists should be as involved as that in their music. I'm not a huge fan of just recording and then sending it to be like, oh, okay, you do this, and I don't really want to have anything to do with it type thing. it's weird that I've met artists that do that, and I don't know how people can do that.
Well, I mean, I think there's like,
yeah.
I think it kind of goes for every kind of aspect in music or in anything you're doing. I mean, we're obviously, this is our career, this is our job, this is what we do. We've put, this thing, and so we've learned out of necessity how to do a lot of things on our own, and because of that, we definitely have people we lean on for expertise. That we know that we can't maybe necessarily do the best job, but it's also really important that our vision gets. It's no different than a writer and how the book ends up. They're going to maybe have like an editor who will go in and make suggestions and things like that, but in the end, it's like the essence of it has to come from us. So that's how we've always really done things, and how we've always kind of pushed towards things. Is we know that we're going to care more than anybody else. So no one's going to care more about your music than you are. So best to like do what you can to make it what you want it to be. To take suggestions and have people do their thing, but in the end, it's like we definitely are involved in every step of everything we do because of that, because we know more what we want than somebody else.
For sure. And Dave from your label sent me a little sneak peek of the EP as well, and right away it kicks off with that real like summery rock and roll vibe. It made me just want to jump in a car and go on a road trip or sit on a patio with the boys and drink some beers. It was crazy hearing like the follow up of the entire EP after the single. It's a perfect timing for it to come out too. Summer is right around the corner, hopefully. I mean, depending where in Canada you are. In Calgary, it rains and snows every 5 minutes, so you never really know what's going to go on. But
it'd also be like 20 degrees in January, so you got that always going for
you. I've seen it snow in July before. It's weird. It'll be halfway through Stampede and it'll start snowing outside.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're from Saskatoon, we know that.
Let's back up a little bit. So you had just a minute ago, you mentioned that you guys got together in 2004, and that's when you started, making music when you were going to University of Saskatchewan. What was kind of the point when you guys were like, hey, we could do this as a career, or what was the point that you decided to, put your all into it and give music a go?
Oh man, I mean, it's kind of hard to be honest. The point that we knew we could make it as a career was probably like September 2011 or something like that. Because it was never really sure that we didn't make any money until 2011. So that's good 7 years of figuring shit out. But we were pretty serious from the minute we started the band. Like, it was me, Ryan, and Sam, our drummer. And I think the story we always tell is it's like in the first month or 5 weeks of the band, we were a band, I think we practiced every single day. And Sam went away to a lake for a weekend, and Ryan and I still got together, and just the two of us would practice in my mom's living room. We were 19 or whatever. And pretty committed early on. We were obviously super raw and downright terrible, but you gotta do those gigs and play some open mic nights and then learn how to book your first horrible tour and learn how to sleep in a bathtub and learn how to take a dump in a terrible green room where the door doesn't lock and all that kind of stuff. It's just, there's a million things you gotta learn, right? I'll let Ryan chime in, but
yeah, sure. No, I mean, it's the thing is, it's something that we wanted to do. I mean, we started the band out of literally a situation where we just wanted to do something different. I mean, we hadn't played in bands before. We all, were somewhat different levels of versed in playing music, but it was literally let's all get together and try playing music together as something to do. And let's, you and I literally had a conversation and said, let's try doing some music and doing something different, a reason that we could maybe do something different than just kind of living in Saskatoon or whatever. Let's mix it up a bit, being 19 and kind of look into the future. But I mean, yeah, we spent 7 years touring across the country, and, it went from playing covers to then, playing originals, and then eventually being let's try recording and see how that works. And then let's record a couple albums, and let's try to get people to pay attention to us. It was let's play club shows. And then it was we don't make enough money playing club shows, so let's let's like book a hall in Saskatoon and throw our own parties instead of doing that. And it was a lot of just, like Ewan said, figuring shit out. You know, we were always super serious about it, but it's a journey. It's like, you know, every sort of overnight success is always like many years in the making. And in our case, you know, we had a really great opportunity that got put in front of us that helped put us in the spotlight, but we were kind of ready to be put into the spotlight in a way because, you know, we'd put all this time in. We were a band. We knew how to perform. We knew how to like play live shows, at least to some extent. But I mean, even now, many years later, I mean, we've been kind of a successful band now longer than we were those like 7 years. I mean, it's been 10 years, like Ewan said, since 2011. But for us, it was like never about, okay, we made it, we're good to go. It's like, okay, now we got to like keep this ball rolling. So, you know, we always took that same mentality, like I mentioned before, like figure stuff out and do the best you could do what you want to do and hope it kind of works out rather than sort of like chasing other people's goals, things like that.
Definitely. And it's funny that you mentioned like you were saying that you weren't making any money before, you know, 2011. I'm guessing that was before the Rolling Stone cover. So when you released that first album in 2006 and then kind of between 2006 and hitting the cover and winning like the Battle of the Bands, you released 3 albums. And so if you weren't making any money, how were you able to, you know, book your tour and kind of build that audience, especially in like a pre-social media era? Because you guys really had to do it old school and you were independent too. So how did you guys learn, and what was that process like of, you know, going out there and booking these tours? And how you say you weren't making any money, so how are you funding this?
I mean, it's kind of a complicated thing. I mean, we say we weren't making money, as in we literally didn't pay ourselves any money until 2011. So any money the band made, we reinvested it. So I mean, we had a line of credit, a $7,500 line of credit that you know I was able to get, and you know we would sort of like top it up and then dwindle it down and then top it up. We'd throw these parties in Saskatoon. So yeah, I mean, you're not making a lot of money touring. It's a lot of money to travel across the country. I mean, like you said, it's pre-social media. It's like pre-smartphones. Like we would have a book of maps that I would print out from MapQuest or whatever, and we would like have from one venue to another on there, and you just sort of follow the map and you know that kind of stuff. But I mean, it was all. Sorry,
I was gonna say, I remember literally driving into towns and being like, we just like a smaller place like Golden or somewhere, Golden, BC. And you'd like just find somebody who had like long hair and be like, hey, do you know where this music venue is? Like, there was no phones and stuff, you know. But like we would, yeah, like Ryan said, we would have we had a line of credit that he was able to get for us because he had a better job than the rest of the guys. But and then we would basically go on tour, max it out, come back, and then we'd have to figure a way to pay it down. So that's what Ryan's talking about. We would do like we would rent a hall, sell tickets, sell booze, make a bunch of money, pay off our debts, and then go on another tour and ring up the debts again. And that was kind of our cycle. It was like, it's, you know, we were driving to Toronto endlessly from Saskatoon, which is like a brutal drive because it's over 30 hours and it's like, you know, a lot of North Ontario and stuff.
It's like that classic old school grind. Like artists nowadays, at least a lot of the, you know, the up and coming artists nowadays don't know what that's like. Like you cannot even play a show and your songs on Billboard nowadays because of social media. So like the new artists.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's limitations. I think there's limitations to social media, and there's nothing that's better. I mean, any bands that you know talk to, it's like you can build up, you know, attention on social media and get, you know, maybe get songs on the radio or get like TikTok success or anything like that. But really, in the end, if you'd like, you know, you make money in music by playing live, so that is a portion of what you need to be doing. I mean, social media did exist then; it just wasn't to the extent that it is now. But it was about like sort of like meeting other bands and like, you know,
MySpace.
that band. MySpace was a thing. You know, Facebook existed, and it was a funny thing. But yeah, it was a lot of like just going out there and learning by experience. But I guess it's also a nice thing because you could play a really shitty show and, you know, it wouldn't be like posted everywhere, tagged with your name on it. So, you know, there's a lot of shows but it helps when there's 0 people at shows that can't post that shit.
Yeah, that's that old school thing. Nowadays, you can't make one mistake without it ending up on the internet somehow. It's like you trip and fall. It's like, shit, that's going to be a meme.
Yeah.
So in 2011, you guys hit the Rolling Stone or the Rolling Stone cover, not just the article. What was like the biggest difference or the biggest change in your careers, obviously besides the international attention that you guys were now getting because of that, what was the biggest change that you've noticed from, doing everything yourself independently, grinding through these tours, having to grind to make your money back, like you were saying, to after this Rolling Stone article and cover and signing to Atlantic? What was like the biggest switch up? Were you guys just finding like, oh, finally, we don't have to do everything by ourselves. We finally have a little bit of support and help here and a little bit more resources to expand?
Yeah, I mean, we just were so much more busy as a start. I mean, that year in 2011, it's like all of a sudden when people started, talking about us in the press, we just got so many more shows, and there were just so many more places that were like, we would like to bring the Sheepdogs here, and so we were forever flying. And it was crazy because it was like all of a sudden we did like 275 dates that year or something, and it's like we didn't even have like a tour manager or any crew at all, and so we would just be like showing up at gigs like holding guitars and like, where do we go? And like we didn't even have like flight cases for guitars, so we'd be watching them like just throw my Firebird onto the luggage and stuff. So we're very green. I mean, green to the international travel thing, but like obviously knew a little more than that. But I think it was just kind of like trial by fire, and that's like the best way to do it. But I don't know. Ryan could probably speak more to the business.
Well, no, I mean, I think it's important to know that didn't just like a switch didn't just flip. I mean, that thing happened very fast, and we got a lot of attention, like Ewan said, and we were prepared to be able to go and throw down a show, but yeah, we didn't have a lot of the stuff figured out in and around that, and it wasn't like we immediately just started like rolling fat stacks or anything like we ever have. But it's like basically the idea was that we got a lot of products. We're getting played on the radio. We're getting articles written on it. We're getting recognized. We're flying to shows, something we like never had ever done in our band. That was all really cool, but it still wasn't like immediate. It still was, there's always, challenges and stuff like that. So, there was some pressure taken off. I mean, it's exciting. There's a lot of focus on us. So there's a lot of pressure to kind of deliver, a lot of people showing up. We'd be playing like Edgefest in Toronto on the side stage, and there'd be more people watching our show than our friends Tokyo Police Club, who were on the main stage, because there was so much buzz around it. And it's like, you're put in this position where you're like probably tired, haven't really slept because you flew from Vancouver to wherever, New York City, and then to like Nova Scotia, and you have to go and play, and there's a lot of pressure to pay attention. But it's not like you're necessarily getting those comforts of like, you have a tour bus, or you have a tour manager that's like teeing things up. I mean, Ewan and I are walking across a festival site, like whatever, like a Bonnaroo or something like that, with suitcases, rolling suitcases that have our like albums in them to drop off of the merch so we can go back and play a show. So it wasn't definitely like a switch flipped and all of a sudden it's like easy street, but it was exciting, as you can imagine. Like I said, it was many years we were just pushing and pushing and pushing, trying to make something happen. So seeing that response, seeing people be like, having people tell you like your music sounds like old rock and roll, like you got to sound more like this band, and then have like hundreds, thousands of people all paying attention and listening and stoked on what you're doing makes a huge difference, and reinvigorated us for sure to do what we do.
And after that, you guys mentioned like getting all these shows and all this attention. What was the craziest thing that has really happened to you guys, either on tour, or it can be like a fan experience, or like a holy shit, we like, this is our life now type of moment? Like what's the one thing, if you can even narrow it down to one thing, that really just sticks out?
We can't go into too many particulars, but we had a tour manager, an ex-tour manager, steal our money and spend it on prostitutes one time.
Okay, that's not what I was expecting to hear.
Oh yeah, okay.
Wow,
that was a long time ago, but
you finally made it when you have somebody stealing your money.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of cool moments. There's lots of weird ones like that. Yeah, that's quite the story. We don't need to necessarily get into that, but yeah, or we can if you want.
I mean, if you want to get into it, go for it.
Well, it was in Memphis like 10 years ago, but it was pretty wild. Yeah, it was like a lot of money at that time, but I wanted to like murder the guy, but I remember our manager at the time was just like, there'll be many other shows, many other tour managers, many other things. Let it go. It's not a big deal. So we put him on a bus in Memphis and sent him home. He had to take a long bus ride home, so that was punishment enough.
Were you able to get any of the money back?
I didn't want to have to go through all the brothels of Memphis to try to find
it. Yeah, we didn't pay him. We refused to pay him, but it was a very, one of those moments. It sounds like it's out of like a rock and roll book where your tour manager comes to you and says that somebody stole all the money. I mean, when you're touring in the States, you can't make deposits as much as you can in Canada. So if you make money, you get paid cash on a show or cash for merch. You're like traveling with a considerable amount of money. So you hire people like this guy to take care of that. And he claimed that it got stolen. And then we later sort of like suspected that something was more to it. Plus, like, we kind of gathered that we had an adjoining room, and there was definitely some funny business going on in that room next to us. And so we eventually got some security footage.
Funny business.
And determined that he had not one but 3 prostitutes come to his room and spent / lost all of our money to that. So yeah, there's a good you're in the mix of rock and roll right there, where you have something like
that.
Yeah, that's like a classic rock and roll story from back in the day. Like that's I feel like you haven't made it as a rock and roll group until something like that happens. Like that's
it's a rite of passage, right?
Yeah, exactly. But on the more positive side, things like where you go to a country where someone doesn't speak your language and they sing your songs back to you, like that's always a really cool. If you can play a show in Germany or something like that, and you have a group of people that are all singing some music back to you, and then you try to talk to them after the show and they can barely speak English, it's like a pretty powerful thing, or a powerful thing to go somewhere you've never been before and have somebody singing your music back to you. That's a pretty incredible, that's a pretty good, like, you've made it kind of experience for sure.
Yeah, awesome. I know you guys have to go here quick, but before you go, let's touch on sports. Now, you guys are big sports guys, and you and your music have been connected with sports for a long time. You guys performed at the Grey Cup, the Heritage Classic. Feeling Good was the Toronto Maple Leafs goal song, which is crazy. It was in NHL 17, the NASCAR, the video game. Your brand new single is in a partnership with the Blue Jays and Sportsnet. How does that feel when, like, the Toronto Maple Leafs or the Blue Jays reach out to you and they're like, hey, we want to use your song for this? Like, it's got to be, as sports fans, it's got to be one of the greatest feelings ever.
Not just as sports fans, but as big fans of Jock Jams 1 and 2. Thrilled. Nah, it's cool, man. Like, I like going to sports. Like, Ryan and I both love going to baseball in Toronto, like the Jays, Skydome there. And like the one year the Jays victory song was Feeling Good, and it was like 2015, I guess, and it was like their best years, the year they had the best shot at winning the World Series recently. And I don't know, they won 90 plus games, and like every time they won, I would just be like, hit my theme music, and they'd blast it. And it just was like, it felt like a king, man. It was just incredible.
That's awesome.
I mean, it's pretty amazing. And like you said, like, as sports fans, it's pretty wild, when you're watching the Jays game. And yeah, like a couple of weeks ago, they had a whole montage of the Jays with our new song. And, it's pretty cool, man. I think, like, there's a lot of, artists that are fans of, of sports, like sports. There seems to be like a bit of a synergy between sports and music. There's a lot of athletes that are also, musicians, or love music, or wish that they were musicians. And so it's definitely one of those things that, has been a special perk going along with that, to be part of those kinds of things, to get to meet different athletes, to get to go to some of these events where you're kind of all up in the mix and being part of these things. It's really cool. I mean, Ewan was far, me and Ewan have known each other since high school, and he was a football player, and he's a far better athlete than I'll ever be. So I'm better at watching and, criticizing than I can't really speak to my own athletic ability, but it's cool to be able to have our music be part of that, for sure.
So as fans, do you guys lean more towards hockey or baseball, since you've had music featured in both?
Baseball, for sure.
Yeah, we're not. It's like our secret Canadian shame that we're not very hockey oriented. Like I'm a junkie for NFL, and we all love baseball and Raptors and that kind of stuff too. So we've met a bunch of NHLers, and they're always kind of like, I think they're always a little like disappointed that we don't know who they are. So You know, I don't know why. Just we're not the biggest hockey guys out there, but it's obviously a huge part of certainly the people that come to our show. They love hockey. You know.
That's
Yeah,
fun.
I played hockey till I was 14 years old. Like I grew up originally before I moved to Saskatchewan. I lived in Northern Ontario, and I think I started playing hockey at like 3 or 4, like very, very young. So I played hockey for a long time, but I sort of like grew away from it after I stopped playing it. And I definitely, as like an older person, have come to love, yeah, football and you know baseball is sort of my number one thing. And watching the Jays.
Awesome. It's funny. My original co-host, a buddy of mine, played the NHL. So I guess we didn't need him here after all.
We wouldn't know who he was anyway. So
unless it was Sidney Crosby. Was it Sidney
who?
Crosby? Yeah.
Awesome, guys. I appreciate you guys taking the time to come on. Big fans of the new record. I hope it does really well. I love the new single. Real quick before you go, if you guys want to plug your album or the EP and your social medias, and anything else you want to chat about.
Sure. I mean, new EP out May 28th. No Simple Thing. New singles, Keep On Loving You. It's everywhere that you would find music, and yeah, we're all over the social medias. We're just the Sheepdogs everywhere. So come find us. We'll keep you entertained.
Perfect. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much. This was great. I loved having you
Hey,
on.
cheers. Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Kyle.
it, man.
Thanks, man.
Nice meeting you guys.
Yeah.
Peace.
Talk soon. Thank you.
See you later, guys.